I don't know how to describe it other than like a demon type of sound.
But it's silhouetted, hulking, every bit of 5.5 feet wide, 13 to 14 foot tall, pitch black.
The one thing that ran through my mind when I had this encounter was I don't have a big enough gun.
Your host, two-time witness and field researcher for more than 40 years, William Jevning. Welcome to Creek Devil.
Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Creek Devil. We have a very special guest today, Randy in Alberta. Randy, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing really good, Will. How are you keeping?
Good. Well, Tom, you and Randy have spoke, so I'm going to have you go ahead and initiate this.
Yeah, Randy, you and I talked yesterday, and I got to tell you, the encounter that you told me about was enough to keep me awake and staring at the ceiling till 2:30 in the morning. It was an amazing encounter.
Really?
And because it's true. Yeah, absolutely. So
one night, I'm telling you.
Well, let's start from the beginning and just tell us the encounter. I believe that you're out hunting moose, and you just be very descriptive of the area, and I'm going to hand it off to you.
Alrighty, thank you, Tom. My day started out with I wanted to go hunt. I had some time off from work, and I loaded up on 2 or 3 different rifles. I think I had 3 rifles with me at the time. And my shotgun, and I had all my tags because I was looking for moose or bear, whitetail, mule, deer, and off I went in my truck north of a town called Westlock in Alberta. And I drove almost all the way up to Slave Lake. And then I went off the highway on just a little skidster road, I guess you would call it. It wasn't really a road. Part of it was, but as I went down the road, not even a mile or so, it became clear that they were just going into this area. It had never been logged out before, and there wasn't any oil exploration in that area. So it was just solid timber. And so I started following that road with my truck, and it had rained probably several days beforehand, quite heavily. And this was probably the first real dry day that you would even dare go into the woods. And I got to a point where I thought I better not drive my truck anymore. And it was almost, we weren't going east anymore. I was probably 20 kilometers into the woods. And got out of my truck. I turned my truck around real careful, and then I got my tags and everything lined up, so I knew where they were. And I thought, I'm going to check out this meadow that's in front of me here, and then go for a walk in those woods in front of me, just to myself. So I'm kind of like facing the sun by this time. It's about 10:30, 11 in the morning, and get my everything all set up. I get out of the truck, close the door real careful, and I only had it on one click because I didn't want to slam the door. And then, because if you see birds fly off, then you know you made too much noise. So I just click, and then I just waited for probably 20 minutes or so, just hunkered down in front of my vehicle, just watching and waiting. And pretty soon I started to see a few little critters running around on the ground. And then I started hearing the squirrels moving, and then a few birds. And then pretty soon the squirrels started running around. So then I knew, okay, everything seems calm around me. Like the animals are getting to know that I'm just here. I'm not, a threat to them. So they're calm. So I just listened and smelled and decided, well, 20 minutes are up here and nothing is really happening. I haven't seen anything sneak up on the edge of the bush or anything like that. So I thought, well, I'm all alone. And the meadow that was in front of me we had the Skidster Road that kind of snaked kind of like a little bit of an S-bend over a 300-meter area and then into the heavy bush. And like, that's real thick bush. Like you would have to walk sideways sometimes and step on the trees because they're so closely together you can't actually touch the ground. Have you ever been in bush like that? But I don't know if you have, but it's really thick. It's a lot of lodgepole and tamarack stuff like that. And it must have been
very familiar with that. Yes.
Okay. And so I didn't want to get into too much of that because you can't go anywhere. And then if you ever get something, then there's a whole bunch of sawing and cutting to dig a trail in there and out. And like if you shoot a moose in heavy bush, that's when the heavy work starts. So I didn't want to do too much heavy work because I'm all by myself. So I start walking across this field and taking my time. And I was in my stealth hunting mode, so I wasn't just strolling along. I was crouched down, and I was trying to keep my profile low because I had all this nice grass. It was just over knee high. It was almost to my waist in places, and it's uneven ground. But I'm walking across there, and then my whole nice day and my peaceful time completely changed at that instant. I clearly remember taking a step and then this sudden loud noise that I just froze in my steps. It sounded like a freight train, but it was like it had a whistle on it, and it also had like there was 3 different tones clearly in that, but I didn't know how a creature could make that sound. But he was not far from me. He was to my right and probably 30 yards, if that. And when he jumped up, he was, my first impression was, how can that big thing be there? That's not real. Like, I thought I was having an hallucination for a second, but it was like, this thing is real. And when it was yelling, it was shaking the inside of my body. Like my guts were just vibrating like pebbles that you throw in the water and you get that ripple. That's what my guts were doing. And my chest.
Hey, Randy.
Sorry?
Yeah, real quick question. No, keep going, but I just had a quick question. Did you actually see it at this point, or did you just hear it?
No, we were eyeball to eyeball. He was 30 feet away, maybe, at the most. And between us, a large 50-inch paddled moose gets up out of the ground. He was laying flat, and he was between us. And his eyes rolled back in its head, and it bellowed and ran past me as fast as it could go. And the moose was looking at me, and its eyes were rolled back in its head. Its ears were flat, and it just took off. And like I was hunting moose, but I never even fired the shot because I couldn't believe what this thing was behind it. And it jumped forward while it was yelling and swiped at this moose. And the hide and the hair it was causing blood. So I don't know how it had claws on its hands. Obviously, it must have. But it raked this thing. So I've got moose hair flying in my face. And this critter, when it landed beside the moose, its waist was at the level of the shoulders of that moose. And I can't tell you, it was so imposing and so long, or so large, and with such a loud noise that I just stood there in awe, like, whoa. And like this critter, if I get back to, like, I know now it's a Sasquatch, but I was just calling it a critter for quite a long time because I've never seen one up to that point ever before, and I didn't know how to really categorize it. I was raised that those things don't exist. Sasquatches, UFOs is all BS. If you talk too much, people put you on pills and you have to see psychiatrists and shit, and you lose your job and your career doesn't go very far. So you stay away from that stuff. And here I got this thing in front of me, and it's huge, and its head is stuck on its shoulders. There's no neck, and it's not looking at me. It's totally focused, but he's in a massive rage, it seems to me. And he's yelling as he goes by me. There's huge bellowing. And when he goes by me, I kind of like take a breath, like, like this. And they both animals ripped past me into the trees. And there's a bunch of poplar, some tamarack, and lodgepoles I mentioned before. And those are just getting knocked down by the moose. Bang, 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 bang. It's just going through there. Its head's right back. And it's not running in a straight line. He's going left, right. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to see them anymore. And then the moose turns. It was going east of me. Now it's going south. And it's by this time it's in the bush of the, but not in the heavy timber. I should explain this a little bit. The meadow had like some poplar and some younger pines and spruces and tamaracks and lodgepole trees growing up, but they were only like 8 feet tall, and some of them were even smaller than that. And then they kind of graduated towards the forest by getting 20 feet high, but they were spaced out, so you could still see quite a bit through there. Like standing on the edge of it, you could easily see 40 feet into the forest fairly easily. Like you'd have to look past 20 or 30 trees to look in a straight line, but you could see that far easily because it wasn't tight. And that's where this moose was running along the edge of the heavy timber and this lighter stuff on the edge of this meadow. So as you go south, they start scrapping a little bit more, and this Sasquatch, he is swinging his arms and knocking trees over, like, and the noise is just unbelievable. Like it sounded like anyways, I don't know if I can say it like that, but it's like a barrage, like of explosions, like one after another, and they're not stopping. And I just became hyper alert. I guess that would be the best way to say that. And I lost sight of them as they went farther south. The noise kept me totally captivated. And then the moose began to run in east, and it ran across into the meadow again and across this skidster road, and that was about a 40-foot skidster road, because skidsters are usually only 8 feet wide at the most, because they're pretty small little machines. But they had skidded that out to lay a bunch of logs down in that meadow on the side there. That's my experience. I don't know if that's what they were doing or why that road was so wide at that spot, but that skidster. But that's usually what you do when you're skidding, so I think that's what they were doing, logging. I'm just guessing. I never talked to any of the guys that worked in that area, so that's why I'm kind of qualifying that. Back to my story. The moose goes across in front of me, and by this time they're about, I would say, 80 feet. They're quite a bit farther away from me. I haven't moved at all, and they went straight east of me. They were south 80 feet, and they were going east. They jumped that road. There was fur flying. He was still grabbing and slashing at the hindquarters of this big moose, and the moose is just nonstop bellowing and screaming. And I've never heard a critter scream like a moose scream like that before. And I did a lot of stuff for a long time with hunters and outfitting and guiding and all that. And guys are taking bad shots, and then you have to finish the animal, and then sometimes they make noises and that. But I've never heard an animal make this kind of a sound. It was beyond words that animal was terrified, just beyond words. I didn't know a moose could get scared like that, if I can do it that way. But anyways, off into the bush it goes into the east. They're scrapping, knocking trees down, bellowing. I can see the moose, his hindquarters are kicking up, and And it's just mesmerizing. I'm still thinking, should I move? What should I do? And for a fleeting second or two, I quickly checked my 6 and above me and all around, thinking, is there, how many more, or is there anything else coming at us? What other animals are there? And like, I didn't see anything. So, but I just had a sense that maybe there was something. I didn't know. I dismissed it, but I was just hyper alert, like I said. And I put my focus back onto this moose and this Sasquatch fighting it, and they kind of run towards me a little bit, but then the moose darts across goes east again across the this skidster road, and then is heading off into the trees again, off into the east, just at a dead run. And this thing is just on it, and yelling this huge, kind of like a train whistle. I don't know how to explain it. It was a very loud yell, and it just, like, your attention was totally focused on that because it was so overwhelming, that noise. And off they went again, trees falling down again. There doesn't seem to be any let up, or these things getting tired or what, like we're getting on here in with that kind of strength being pushed out. And that moose and this critter start fighting again in the woods and knocking more trees over. Out it comes and comes running across the road again and into the bush. And this time it's not long, and it's running back the other way. And now it's for the third time really going east. And I think, okay, that's it. He's either going to kill it now, or that moose is going to get away somehow or something, because it's like a neck and neck battle here. And it seemed to me at this point, when they got, probably 50, 60 meters into the woods, that the moose connected with one of the tine hoofs to that critter's, either his head or close to it in his chest area, and like knocked it down, like smacked it hard enough to knock it down. And then it bolted, and that moose come running at me with its ears flat, eyes rolled back, bellowing and screaming straight towards me. And this thing is getting up and coming at me now. And it's in a freaking nasty rage. It's just screaming. It's showing its teeth, and he's just, he's got his arms up in the air, and he's, oh my God, it's just a fright even to think about it now. But both of them are now coming at me, and like, it seemed like a half a second they were on top of me. And the moose seemed like it was going to hunker down behind me and hide behind me. And I looked at it for a second, like, what? And then it realized I'm not going to protect it. And it went to my west and north behind me. And this thing saw its chance, I guess, and it just leaped. It was on the edge of the skidster road on the east side, and it leaped, and it cleared the whole 40-foot pathway completely and landed right beside me, and then jumped up in the air again with this, and the ground shook when he hit the ground, like it vibrated me, like there wasn't any. It was like standing beside something that just cooked off. Like there was power there. He dented the ground probably like 6 inches, maybe. I don't know. I didn't get out a ruler, but it just looked like that. And then he went over top of my head, and it seemed like he was over top of me, but he was probably about 10 feet away when he went over me. And he landed right beside the moose, and he got a hold of that moose's antlers with one of his hands, the right hand, I believe. And then the left hand, he had him by this moose by the shoulders. And then he just did this horrific yank. And he had the moose's antlers, and that neck snapped in front of the shoulders. And I saw the broken bone of the neck go down underneath the hide about halfway down its back. And the moose just dropped. And when it was dropping, this huge thing was eyeball to eyeball. He put its head, the moose's eye, right to his eye, and they went down together. And that was the last time I saw them. And I didn't hear anything either. When they went down, I expected to hear a big, you know, like they're only at the most, if I measured it out, 35, 40 feet, maybe 50 feet away. They felt like they were at my toes, to be honest with you, but I know they were farther out. And when they went down, there must have been a hollow in the ground or maybe a tiny creek or something. They're in the meadows. They're only like a foot wide. They just are there. And maybe they were in that. I don't know. But he disappeared, like right in front of me. They laid down, and I wasn't after about 30 seconds of stillness, you couldn't hear anything. There wasn't a chirping bird or nothing was moving. And that was the most amazing stillness I've ever been in. And there was no sound at all. And then I had a real sense that I should leave. But I was really actually had a real concern that I was going to make way too much noise for these animals and that I wasn't going to be able to get out because I was making too much noise. So my exit took me about 20 minutes. And I was only walking like 200 yards. I was still in the meadow. And my truck, I could still see my truck, barely, but I could still see it. And I just started to walk very, very slowly, like I was moving my feet, and then I would shift my weight and then just pick up my foot very, very carefully and then place it only like a footstep farther ahead of me, a few inches, and then gently put it down. Well, all along, I'm looking around me and 360 the whole time. Like my head was on a swivel for the whole 20 minutes. And I was about as alert as I've ever been in my life. In other situations, I've been very alert, but I think this was right up there with the number one being alert. I knew my life was in danger if that thing came at me. I just knew that I was going to have a real tough time surviving that kind of an attack. And I really didn't think that the rifle that I had was enough gun. And also I thought, well, what am I going to shoot? Like, I've never seen this creature before. Like, where does it have vital signs? Like, like the head, obviously, but you shoot a running animal in the head, good luck. Especially when it's charging you. There's a probably a 90% chance you're going to miss. And, and you go center mass. Well, I've shot bears that just don't even slow down, and you've killed them. You've shot their heart right out of them, but they keep running. They come right to you. So I didn't want that thing engaging me. So I just kept moving. And then that sense of, is there others around here like this creature? And I was searching my eyes, all the meadow, the grass in front of me that was really close because this thing jumped up so close. And I was really surprised that a moose that big was hiding from me that close. I was really quite amazed at that. And there wasn't any bushes there to hide behind either. But and it's just amazing to me that that animal was, that moose was like trying to dig himself into the ground to hide. It seemed to me, because I had never seen a moose lay flat like that, or ever have even seen a scene like that. My God, I don't even know how to express that. But that was what I thought was my very first encounter with these creatures. And I managed to get into my truck. I rolled the windows down. I had I loaded all my rifles immediately, and then I set them so that I could grab them. I had one poking out the window, and then I backed up. And for the 20 kilometers out till I hit the highway, I had my rifle at the ready. And because I'm driving a rough road, we can't just step on the gas and go, eh? So I'm probably doing a fast trot at the very most with my vehicle getting out of there. It's a skidster type road. So there's potholes and you're going over lots of rough ground. But I got out of there, and then I just went home. I couldn't go hunting anymore. And my wife was like, "What is the matter with you? What happened?" Because as soon as she saw me, she knew there was something up. And I said, "I don't know what I saw out there." But I told her what I just told you. And now I said, "I don't know what to think of that. Like, I've never seen an animal like that." And she says, "Well, I think what you saw was real." And so I went and I asked two of my friends, that I hunted with quite a bit. And we're all kind of like solo hunters in a way, but we meet up lots. And they both wouldn't talk to me at all. They wouldn't say a word to me about it. As soon as I mentioned what I had seen, the one guy just left the room. And then when I tried to talk to the other guy, he just looked at me like, "I ain't speaking to you right now at all, not a word." And that was the end of our conversation that night. And that was kind of annoying to me, but you know, I can understand why maybe they didn't, because I never told anybody except my wife. And then I just kept it quiet. And then I listened around to see if anyone else had ever heard or seen any of these things. And all I was getting was, just crazy people that were being put on medicine and were seeing these things. So I didn't mention anything. I didn't want to get myself into a pickle somehow, or be ridiculed at work. More importantly, you just don't want that happening for any reason. But I just kind of tried to push it out of my mind. And I think for some time, my busy career was doing that. But when it quit, one night my wife asked me a question. She said, "Hey," and then the memory started to come back, and then my wife told me some things that she had seen. We started to kind of like admit to each other some of our secrets when we were walking in the woods, because we had both seen things, but we didn't want to say anything to the other person. It's kind of weird when you're married and you don't, but it's if you've ever had an encounter where something's close by you, but you're not quite sure if it's unusual. There's an unusual presence there. It's not like anything else I can explain. There's just a sense there that there's something else. That's unnerving, and sometimes people they just get scared and they want to leave, and you don't want to really talk about that uncomfortable feeling. But if
Hey,
I could
Randy,
just
No, go ahead. You're going to mention something. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to mention we found some kind of a hide, my wife and I, when we were not too far from where I had seen this animal, and it looked to us like a hide, but it was. I just looked on the outside quite a bit, but my wife went inside, and then that was when she went inside that's when she realized that there was something going on. Because like when you're in the woods, there's always things on the ground, and there was nothing in the ground in there. It was totally spotless, absolutely, and padded right down by like someone had taken a steamroller and rolled it all out. It was just as smooth as a baby's butt, really, and the ground was like powder, and it was clean, and it had a real freshness scent to it. And when she went in there, I couldn't see Paula at all. And then she moved around in there, and I couldn't even see her. And I was like, "What kind of hide is that? It just looks like a bunch of sticks." So we went around, and when she went in there, she said, "Look, I can see this whole meadow here, the whole meadow, and nobody can see me." And then it was like, I've got a real sense that something just left here, or some guy just left here. We thought it was some hunter. But then we were looking on the ground. There was no boot prints at all, or even running shoe prints, or there was deer print, there was moose print, there was coyote print, and some squirrels and stuff like that, but there was nothing else except for in the hide itself. It was just as smooth very kind of a strange thing to us. But somebody built that. We know that someone had to have built that, and they had to be pretty damn strong to build something like that. Yeah, because part of it was alive, and it was growing in the ground, and part of because the sticks were pushed into the ground and they were growing now, and also there was dead trees weaved into it. Yeah. I got to go back and take a picture of it now because I'm like, my God, I gotta. It's just incredible. But when this creature kind of opened up my eyes, because when I was talking to my wife, I told her, or we were speaking together actually about this, and the consensus was my mind is hardwired for non-existence. It isn't there. So I dismissed things that I was seeing. And when this creature opened my eyes that there's other things that are here. They're really here. My walks in the woods became quite a bit more different. What I was dismissing as some kid with tracks on the edge of a slough running around in the mud, like I would, that's like a dumb thing to do, especially in October, November, because it's so cold and you can put yourself in hypothermia in a very short amount of time, playing in water and mud like that. And I always dismissed that as dumb, stupid things. And now I'm realizing that's not exactly entirely true. It could be something else, because they're human footprints, right? But they're big, and I wasn't allowing myself to even believe it. That I just thought was melting it and making them larger.
Hey, Randy, it sounds like your wife. Is your wife in the room with you? Would she mind getting on for just a moment, and in her words, telling us what she saw as well of this structure?
Oh, okay. So Randy and I were. Oh, Paula here.
Hey, Paula, how you doing?
Yeah, we were. Randy was teaching me how to hunt, and so I began. Once our kids were a little bit older, and we could leave them with the sitter for a while. I was very interested in learning what he was doing out there, because he spent a lot of time out in the bush, and I wanted to be part of that and understand what was happening, and maybe get a deer myself. So we were taking trips out to the bush and spending time out there, and we were walking through this brush on a game trail, and that's when we came across this structure. And to me, it looked like just a bunch of gnarled brush or whatever. Some of it was living, some of it was kind of dead. It looked like somebody had just piled up a brush pile. But I went and looked around it, and I found an entrance, and that kind of shocked me. So I got down on my knees. Randy walked a little bit ahead of me, and I went inside this structure. And first thing I noticed is that all the branches were just so nicely separated apart, so you could get a panoramic view of this meadow. And I thought, hey, this is fantastic. We should do some hunting out here. We've got a beautiful panoramic view of this meadow. And then I called out to Randy. I said, hey, Randy, can you see me? And he's looking around. No, where'd you go? And I said, I'm actually in here. And he couldn't even see me. He was standing out in the middle there by a couple feet, and he was looking in, and he couldn't even see me. Anyway, so I started looking around in this thing. One of the things that really struck me was the smoothness of the ground. There was a certain amount of light coming in on the edge of this meadow, so I could see clearly the floor, the outline of the floor and everything. And the thing that struck me, there was no grass growing inside of it. Like if it had been left for any period of time, there would be all kinds of stuff growing in there. But it was smooth, like somebody had been laying in there on a regular basis. And at first I thought maybe I definitely knew that somebody with hands and a great deal of skill had constructed this thing, because it was so beautifully weaved together, and it was so beautifully hidden. Like you could walk past the thing and just think it's a pile of brush. It was so beautifully hidden, but the way the space of the branches were spaced along the facing the meadow, it was so that you could just see the whole thing beautifully. And I thought to myself, okay, whoever made this is in here a lot, an awful lot. Every day, every couple of days, to have that floor so smooth and clean and nothing, not a blade of grass is growing in there. And so anyways, I ended up getting out, and I thought that was pretty cool, but it really stuck in my mind, and I thought to myself, that is really odd. That is really odd, because if it was a person that constructed, a person that is utilizing that, they would have to be using that on a regular basis, sleeping in it, staying in there, for that to be in that condition.
Let me ask you a question. How big was the entrance, and how large or how easy was it to move inside of the structure?
It was easy. It was easy for me to get in. I had to get on all fours to get into it, but there was plenty of room for me to just crawl right in there. And it kind of opened up a little bit. It was sort of an oval shape, and it kind of opened up in there. And like I said, you could see little cracks of sunlight coming in, so I could see clearly what was in there. It wasn't dark, and it was easy for me to crawl into it. And I'm 5'6", weigh about 135 pounds. So I'm not a very big person, but I could easily go in there. Like a bigger person could have easily got in there, just if they got on their all fours and crawled in. But the entrance was kind of hidden a little bit. I had to walk around there, and then before I noticed it. So I just sort of tucked that in the back of my mind, and thought, that is very strange to be out in the middle of the bush and find something like that. And it's pretty remarkable. At first I thought, maybe a bear's living in here. Then I thought, there's no way a bear could this. You're definitely looking at it. Someone constructed it, and someone constructed it. It had a great deal of skill, and very particular about the way it was constructed. I've never seen anything like that in my life.
Yeah. Well, what I'm curious about is how big were some of the branches? Would it take somebody with a lot of strength and dexterity?
I wouldn't say strength, because most of the branches were kind of like willow size, so there wasn't like big logs or anything like that. It was but willow size. Some can be pretty thick, some can be quite a bit smaller and finer. So strength wise, it was the skill, I think, involved in constructing it. You could see that it had been constructed very carefully and very meticulously.
Do you think one of these large creatures, and maybe this is a question for you and Randy, was it large enough to accommodate one of these large creatures? Could they have utilized it?
Oh, possibly, I would think.
Because it was tall. It was quite tall in there.
It was quite tall in there. Like if I would have stood up, it maybe been up to my neck, maybe the size of the whole thing. The size of the whole thing. Yeah.
And if somebody was crawling in there.
Yeah, but somebody was in there a lot.
Yeah, and someone
an awful lot.
Because the ground was so.
Yeah, it was just beaten down. That ground was just like a nice powder, and just
it was like
beaten right down.
It had been just pummeled.
Yeah, it was just so soft, and comfortable, and wow, just amazing. I just sort of tucked that in the back of my mind and thought, that's pretty cool.
I have to tell you.
But I that little question mark in my head. What had made that?
I have to tell you, I did find something once very similar to that little different kind of construction in Skamania County. We got called out on a logging crew that had witnessed one of these creatures. It was a helicopter logging crew, and the pilot noticed one of these things trying to sneak up on the loggers' lunches. So myself and another gentleman went out to investigate the area, and we found 18-inch footprints. And not far from there, I happened to come across this, and I wouldn't have seen it had I not been really looking for it. But it was sort of I guess you'd call it a rock outcropping. It didn't look like an outcropping because it was, if you look down on it, it was camouflaged. It just blended in with the ground, the rest of the ground, the edge of it. But it was about, and I crawled in there, it was 4 or 5 feet high, went back in maybe 15, 20 feet. And what was interesting was the whole bottom of this, and it was rock, was covered with what looked like, there were a lot of huckleberry and other bushes in the area. Probably the end 6 inches of each of those branches had been picked or plucked, from the bushes, and there was this bed of this material covering this for probably 10 feet around in there, and it was fairly thick, so it wasn't rodents, but something had used that, and the only thing I could think of was, one or more of these creatures was in the area, and I don't know what the purpose of it was, but because it didn't really have much of a field of vision for hunting, but it sounds kind of along the same lines as what you found.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's pretty cool. Yeah. I still wonder what to this day what lived in there, and I thought, well, maybe it was one of these creatures. Maybe it could have been a place where she stuck her kids.
Or a hunting blind. I mean, you had a pretty good field of vision from there.
Fine. Yeah. You could walk right up to it, and you wouldn't even see the person inside there. Yeah. But I had a perfect view.
You were moving around too, and I still couldn't see you. That was what got me.
Yeah.
It was like I got a really good eye.
No, it's pretty cool.
I was amazed that I couldn't see you.
Yeah.
And it's just the way the branches were placed.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't it was in a row, but not really a row. There was a 3D depth to it.
Yeah.
They were placed farther out.
Yeah.
So that some branches covered certain spots, and then other ones behind them covered other areas.
Yeah.
And
I know. It's pretty amazing.
Your shadow.
Construction. I was pretty awestruck.
Yeah.
By it.
Randy, did you say that you thought you might be able to go back at some point and take pictures of this?
Yes, I've been planning to do that for some time now, and I'm hoping I can do that in the next little while here before the snow hits. But
quite a few years
ago,
whether it's still there, I have no idea. But
well, that's my other question: is how long ago did all this happen? Especially with the thing hunting the moose.
Oh, hunting the moose, that, I'm telling you, that happened. I didn't speak a word of that, and that had to have been what?
Oh, a long time.
2000? 2000, I think. Yeah, because
over 30 now.
Yeah, I'm old. Yeah, that's right. So, yeah.
25 years? 25 years?
Yeah, 25 years ago. But I wouldn't speak of it because it took that long for my head to accept what I saw. And also, I think in some ways, I was wondering how come that critter didn't kill me. Like, all he would have had to do was hit me with one of those swipes, and I'm quite sure if it opened up the hide off a moose, his swipe would have taken me out. I think the power was incredible. It was like his arm was both the size of both of my legs to get tied together, kind of thing. It was like incredibly long arms, and it was just amazing to see that creature. And
one of the things I want to mention.
Sorry?
Is one of the things I want to mention was you had contacted a guest that we did a kind of a 2-hour special with her. She's in the UK, so I just wanted to mention her, Debbie, and that's how we got a hold of you. But you had mentioned a couple of things, and I want to see if I could kind of backtrack a little bit and ask a couple of questions about the creature. One of the questions I always ask, because I'm curious, and it's good to get this information, is, the color of the creature And what did the face look like? Did the face have hair? Because some of them do and some don't. So maybe we'll start with those two questions.
Well, I'll start with the first one. His color was black, mostly black, all over his, from the feet all the way up. There were some spots on his chest that seemed to be white a little bit, but for the most part, his chest was kind of like almost bare, because I could see his chest, and also I could see his abdominal muscles, like he had a 6-pack or an 8-pack or whatever you want to call it, but he had muscles on his abdomen, I'm telling you. And they were wide, huge. Like I couldn't get my arms. If I came up and tried to give it a hug, I wouldn't be able to get my arms around it, like just the front part of it, because it was huge. It was more than 6 feet wide. I guess that's what I could say, because that's about as far as I could reach. But the face had, to me, he looked like an old native man, but with like a mixed with African black. It was just like an ebony black with a leathery red kind of weathered face. His eyes were big and far apart, like they weren't set in tight to each other. They were like, if I put my face up to him, his eyes were on each side of my head because he had such a big head. And that was kind of, it looked like someone had just pounded his head onto his shoulders or something. It was kind of squished into his shoulders a little bit. He didn't look like he had any kind of a neck that I could see. And when he turned to look at things, his shoulders turned too. So it was like he wasn't doing a lot of rotating his left and right with his head. Maybe he couldn't. I don't know. But when what I saw of the creature, that he was focused on a kill. But what I think there was something else about that, but I'll mention that later. I think he was trying to show off to me. But anyways, the face itself had that kind of a leathery look. It wasn't all covered in hair. I could see his face really clearly. And it was kind of freaky because that looked like I was looking at him in a sense because of his eyes. And I know that he was really big, but he looked like a man. That's what I mean. He looked like I was
right.
I could say hello, and he would say hello back to me. He had that kind of a face, like he could.
Okay.
He was intelligent. He was capable of language, and to that,
let me. I
just wondered
that.
Does that help you?
Yes, tremendously. So going back to that, a couple things. I'm just going to ask a few questions here. The eyes, you mentioned they're far apart. I've heard people describe this attribute, and it applies to certain types and not all of them. But sometimes the eyes are like almost higher up than where ours would be. In other words, not much of a forehead, a thick brow ridge, and the eyes would be positioned higher up. I don't know if you had noticed that or not, or if that even applied to this creature.
I think I would have noticed that detail because we were quite
Gotcha.
Quite close, and like he had a face of a man, not something like an animal with if his eyes higher. I would have noticed, because he kind of had like a, what do you call it, a conical head? Yeah. He kind of had a conical head, bit of a point. I don't know if I told anyone that before, but I don't know if that was hair hanging up there like that, but he was so scruffy. That was the other thing. And it was like, it made, when I was thinking about it afterwards, it made sense to me because he was in that grass crawling across that meadow onto that moose. And he wasn't very far away from it. And then he waited for me for that whole 20 minutes of me sitting out there in front of my truck because I drove in. Everyone would have heard that. That's probably why the moose hunkered down. But I think that animal was being hunted by that critter for quite a time, and that he was slithering and crawling through the grass, and he was, because when he went by me, he had bits of the forest flowers were in his hair. He had bits of moss and grass leaves, twigs. Some of that hit me when he went by me. And there was another thing that was interesting. I just remembered it now, as clear as a bell. As when he went by me the first time, I caught his scent, and it was really, really fresh, and but it didn't smell like any other animal I've ever smelled before. It didn't smell like a bear, not like a moose. Didn't smell like any deer, or didn't smell like moss or anything, but it had a musky scent to it, but it was so clean and fresh. Yeah, I was just shocked when he went by because he was so scruffy. But the scent of him was incredible. And I didn't
You had
smell
mentioned
anything prior to that. Sorry. I go on and on, I know.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I kind of had a question also. I think you had mentioned you saw the teeth. Did you notice, were they flat, or did you see any canines? Were they yellow? What did you notice about the teeth?
They were more yellowy. To be honest with you, that oh God, yeah, that was the frightening point of seeing them so close. Was those teeth, because they were kind of squared. It looked like he had a mouthful of horse teeth. Really, I don't know how to explain that. They're blocked, I guess. I'm not a real dentist. I don't know how to express that. But the teeth were not. They were like human teeth, but like molars almost in the front. He didn't look like he had canines. I don't know if he had canines. And like,
you probably would have seen that.
His mouth was open when it went by me, and he was screaming, and I looked like right into his face, and like I didn't see any big long. Like I've seen pictures of them, and they show Sasquatch with these big, long canines. I didn't see any fangs or anything sticking out of his mouth or his jaw, or even inside his mouth. They were all about the same size, but they were all big molar type yellow block. That's all I can tell you, and I don't know if with that if anyone.
Yeah, no, that's
or I was thinking,
well,
if he
and I've heard it.
Because of his teeth, I started looking at some of the trees differently, that they weren't beaver gnawing on it anymore. I was thinking maybe this thing was, but that's only my uneducated little thought. Like, I'm no expert. I don't think I would be called an expert at all in being in the bush, but I know I am called that because I did guiding and hunting and that for so many years. But it just seems like I'm a total I won't say that, like a baby when it comes to this. Like, it's totally like I've landed on another planet. This is a new animal to me. And now when I start realizing, when I go back in the woods, what were those gnaw marks then, Randy? Why are those? I thought it was a beaver, but then I was like, where the hell is the beavers? Like, there's no beavers around here. Like, I did that twice. Then I found all these gnawing marks on several trees. And then I thought, well, how come it's gnawed like that? And then I walked around, and there's no, running water. There's no dam. There's no creeks around, nothing. And I was like, somebody's been farting around again. And I just dismiss it, Like, I'm hunting. I don't have time to start looking at other stuff, right? So I just go on, but it did jog me, and it did cause me to turn aside those gnaw marks. And
how high up were they?
Chest high, like 3-4 feet. Yeah, depending on how high you are, I guess, but about chest high, about 4 feet-ish. And some of them were down lower, but they were on living plants. Like, the trees weren't dead that they're gnawing on. So that's why I thought beavers were working. But I thought beavers don't work that high up. They just don't. They get up on a log and they'll gnaw off a tree, several feet up in the air. They don't care. But there wasn't anything doing that to these trees. They're just standing as a stand. There wasn't any like lean-tos in their old trees that had fallen through to be a platform for them to get up. So those things kind of went through my mind, because when I see something, I kind of back up and then have another look at it. If I'm not comfortable, I'll keep backing up. I'll back up a lot more to see what I'm seeing as a bigger picture. Did I miss something? What else am I missing? That's part of this. Is there another trail, or is there another set of tracks? Because when I was hunting, that's what I would be looking for, was my best way to outwit an animal, right? So you've got to pay attention to what's around you to know where they are. And animals leave lots of sign if you know what to look for. And this critter, I was never really allowing myself to recognize these signs because they were unusual and they seemed out of place. And I didn't see the reasoning for it, put it that way. Like the critters that I know, why would they do that? Like, if the beavers needed something, it seemed to me like humans will strip bark and eat the inside, the paper there for some nutrition.
Layer.
Yeah. People have done that a long time. That's well known.
Well, I've seen that. I'm gonna throw a thought out there real quick, if that's okay. It's just, and this is purely a thought. And Will, if you've got any thoughts, any speculation on that, please, chime in. But I have wondered if they don't eat the cambium layer, if there's not some medicinal value to it. Just who knows?
And I believe there is, because there's other things that grow on the ground that aren't plants and aren't animals. And I've noticed teeth marks on lots of different kinds of mushrooms. And you can tell after a while, okay, bird's been on that one, or deer's been munching that one, or, you can tell because you can see the marks, eh? So I started looking around on, there's some mushrooms that these animals are eating too. But I have to identify them now. That's why I want to get out there so bad again. It's like, if I could get out there and find what I used to find. And if those things...
Well, we had a guy up in...
They may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just thinking...
Well, we had a...
Oops.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. If they're territorial at all, they will stay there if they're still living in those areas that I saw them. Because I believe they were watching me for quite a long time because I hunted that area for years, and I was a solo hunter. So I would be like 100 miles away from any highway pretty much, and way out in the woods, and just me sitting there waiting for a deer and or bears. Sometimes I get more than one, and that would be a real mouthful for a while. But it's all about the thrill of just being out there, I guess. I don't know if you'd call it the thrill, but I just love being in the woods. And okay, I think I lost my point.
No, well, no, that's a good point, though. I understand that entirely. I do have a couple quick questions. Number one, I was going to comment. I think the cambium layer, I don't know if it's true or not. So if there's any First Nations or Native Americans who know, I think that it used to be that sometimes they would peel back some of the cambium layer for medicinal purposes. And I think, you look at the bark of like willow trees, that's kind of sort of a primitive aspirin. It goes all the way back to the Greeks.
Oh, yeah.
But I had a quick question on the mouth. If you notice the mouth, was it, I've heard some people describe that the mouth was considerably larger than like a human mouth. I just wonder if you noticed any of that.
I did. It was older. You know what it looked like? The mouth, if I would just focus that, it would look like an old Asian man's mouth, but a lot bigger. But it had almost like the lips. There was just something about the lips that it seemed that it was able to like speak language. It just struck me that way quite profoundly. When I see him, he's got this kind of a face of a native, but he looks and a bit of a black man, and he looks just like me. And I'm looking right at another human, and he's gonna but he's not talking to me. He's making this sound that I've never heard before, and it's just vibrating my body. And I know it's a weapon, but it's not really aimed at me. He's focusing it on this moose, but I am sure feeling the effects of it. But I don't know what it would be like to be right in that screen, pinpoint focus at you. I think that would probably cause a person to fall down.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't be a good thing.
I don't think so. I've seen
Randy and Paula
close to buffalo, and buffalo will jump at you, and people they're tough boys, and they're laying on their back, and they don't even know how they got there. And I said, an animal just did that to show you who's boss. And you went down.
Oh, yeah.
Our human body just does. It reacts to things, and we just don't know how to do. We don't realize we have that, but it's a reflex, I guess. Sorry. Anyways, you were saying something. Did you?
Yeah, Randy and Paula, both of you, I wanted to thank you so much for being on the show today. And you have absolutely an incredible encounter. And if you get those pictures, by all means, I would love to see those. And stay in touch. Don't be a stranger. And we would like to, stay in touch. And yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, folks. Thank you again.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I'm glad to be able to tell that story.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Creek Devil. If you or anyone you know has had an encounter with these creatures, please contact us at williamjevning@yahoo.com. That's William, Jevning, @yahoo.com. All communication is confidential. Join us for another program next week. And until then, keep your eyes open out there.